what are the key things that make for a tough comedian, which usually I assume would lead to a successful comedian over time, right?
That's a great question. I think a tough comedian, you didn't even say funny comedian, you say a tough comedian. A tough comedian would be someone who genuinely can take the punches and keep going. And that's such a hacky thing to say. I think it's from Rocky or something, but like, but I think a lot of people, especially now, I think that it's very easy to say, I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't care what people think on social media. And I think a lot of people actually do care. You know what I mean? And I think that's their way of dealing with it. But if you're very honest with yourself, you go, look, this stuff does affect me. And if you're honest with yourself that it does affect you, instead of being that, you know, that I feel like 90% of humans now, they're like, I don't care what anyone says on Twitter or Facebook. And then they're the ones who are on Facebook and Twitter getting into arguments. So meaning like you genuinely don't care, not just for show, but like you can take that criticism and you can not let it affect you to a point where you can't perform, right? I think someone told me, a sound guy at the comedy store, Phil, the comedy store in Sydney, he gave me the best advice once when he wasn't even a comedian. He was a musician, and he told me, like, when I was starting out, he said, like, being professional is knowing you had a bad gig and not being emotionally affected by it. Right? Because once you start beating yourself up too much over it, and I think with comics, it's very easy to get into your own head with having a bad gig. Once that happens, that's like, you can't improve. It impedes performance, right? So you got the way you take bad shows and actually use them to make yourself better is you can't let yourself get emotionally affected by a bad gig, which again, that's a skill, right? That's a skill you build. It's easier said than done. Very easy to say, don't worry about these people. Don't worry about this show.
Right,
that's very easy to say, but to actually do it, that's a skill that you
and
have.
It's easy to say when you're sitting in your living room, like talking on Zoom, right? Like, talk to me about, share with us either you got two choices here. You can talk about the first time you bombed, or the worst time you bombed. Give me one of those. I mean,
man, I bombed all the time. I can't even remember the number of times I bombed. I mean, the one, whenever I get asked this question in interviews, which is all the time, the one I always bring up was,
I thought it was a good question.
It is a good question for this podcast, but I mean, that's one of the reasons I don't do podcasts. I keep getting asked the same questions over and over again. But the one that comes to mind is I was in Busselton, Western Australia, doing a music festival, and music festivals are tough. Like,
for those who don't know, Busselton, Western Australia. Can we paint a picture here? Because this is like, I'm picturing it's like a mining town. There's just big guys with beards that are bigger than their heads.
Well, you know, I've done mining towns. I've done Kalgoorlie. I've done like Darwin, Alice Springs. Those aren't mining towns, but you know, like, so pretty country towns. Busselton, no, but here's the thing. Busselton is a country. It's like a West Coast beach country town.
Okay.
So it's West Coast Australia, very California-like, except small town. But the difference here is that it's a music festival. So you're not going to get the rough around the edges guys. You're going to get the hipster country guys. So it's a bunch of guys with beards who are too cool for school. And anyway, the thing about music festivals is that it's open air, it's daytime. It's not conducive for stand-up comedy, stand-up comedy you need to pay attention to. You know, music, you can be enjoying it legitimately while still talking to friends or using your phone. But stand-up comedy, if you're not listening, you can't really get into it. So they put us on, and I did Falls Festival, which is also a big music festival. And that went okay, you know, in Victoria. I did okay at that gig. And then the next gig was Busselton Outdoor Music Festival, daytime. So I go on and, you know, like I said, I've done this set. I practice. It's not like my first time doing this set or my first time doing comedy. So I kind of know what I'm doing for that 10 minutes. I had a set prepared that was quite suitable for this kind of environment, which is just go, 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 go. You know, we're not talking. We're just going to go 10 minutes and get off. And it went well. You know, it was going well at other music festivals. So I do the same set. And at this particular gig, these hipster kids were like, they start going, boring. So I go like, you know, they're like interrupting the gig. So I threatened to throw them out of the music festival, which I had no authority to do. And so I'm telling the security guys, like, hey, if these guys keep making noise, we're just going to have to throw them out. And the security guys in front of the stage were like, we're not listening to you. You know what I mean? Their faces were like, you have absolutely no authority here to throw anyone out. But the guys in the back didn't know that. So I just kept pretending like we're about to throw these guys out of music festival because these are pretty expensive tickets, right? And it's like it's like a closed off festival. You get thrown out, you can't come back in. So you might not want to see me, but there's probably some bands which you haven't come up yet. So I threatened to do that, and that shut them out for a little bit. But then they started booing again, and so I just finished my set. I just ate shit. The whole set was just like just silence or someone booing, and then I just got off. I just said, "Yeah, you guys have been great," and then I just got off. And then I think that night I slept on a table at the music festival. And I think the security guard gave me a towel for a blanket. Yeah, so I slept on a trussel table. Anyway,
was that if we were doing a movie of Ronny Chieng's life? Is that like the low point where it was I gotta do something?
Nah, it wasn't. It was just one of those. It's you take your licks.
Times.
Yeah, you take your licks. And I think the thing I always say, which I think is relevant for this podcast, is I was a lot less experienced then, and I took it a little bit harder. But it wasn't devastating to me, but I took it harder than I would now. But the way I look at it is a lot of what you do in live performance is about feeling the energy. You can feel the energy of the crowd, and you can feel the energy of situations when you're dealing with other human beings. And part of being a tougher comedian, as you said, and being a great comedian is understanding what energy is happening and either adapting to it or not being anxious about it because you felt that energy so many times because you've done so many gigs. Yeah. So, for example, if someone's heckling in the crowd and you can feel the energy and you can feel the energy of, okay, is this the kind of heckle which is you made a joke that's really funny and they're going like, yeah, we agree with you, that kind of heckle. So he's actually agreeing with you and he's shutting up. He's not like continuing to interrupt the show. He just had one moment of like, yeah, you're so right, whatever, however that gets expressed. But the energy is, he's a positive, he's agreeing with you, and he's going to stop. He's going to shut up. Because positive, even if he's positive, if he's interrupting the show, that's still bad, right? And so that's the next type of energy, which is he's positive, but he's interrupting the show. And because you felt the energy before, because you know that energy is positive, you don't go after him. You just go, yeah, man, yeah, look, I get it, man. I got more jokes here. Let me just keep going. I know you like that one. You don't clash with him because you know that he's being positive. Then the third kind is the fucking, he's trying to interrupt the show. And then when that happens, you either have to go downstairs and fight him, or you have to get security to throw him out. But part of the job is knowing what energy, because if you get someone who is just saying, yeah, that's right, and he shuts up after that, and then you go after him like he insulted your mother, like that ruins the whole thing. And that's because you didn't know what energy he was giving. And so that's one part, identifying it. And then the second part of the energy aspect is once you've experienced almost every type of energy that's possible, you're less anxious when you see it again, right? So when you experience the energy again, you're like, oh, I know what this is. And either I know how to deal with it, or I know there's no solution here. And
you just got to go.
You take the licks, and I know that at the end of this gig, everything will be okay. No one's going to die. We'll live to fight another day. And so that experience of like, even taking a punch, that like, yeah, okay, we're going to take this punch, but it'll be okay. It's not the end of the world. I know why this gig is going bad. It's not me.